Welcome back to the deep dive. We're jumping straight in today with, I think, one of those classic spiritual questions that, on the surface, feels like a massive narrative blunder.
It really does.
You have the story of Adam, the beginning of it all, and it's happening in Jannah, this perfect, tranquil, secure place.
And right away, you have to ask, okay, if it's so perfect and so secure, how in the world did Sean get in? It
Exactly.
feels like the biggest plot hole you could imagine in the whole story of humanity.
Why build a perfect operating system and then, immediately introduce the one virus that can crash it? But our sources, specifically the organic Quranic methodology,
Yeah.
the OQM and the ADGE framework, they don't see this as a flaw at all. They see it as the most logical and necessary action. It's not plot hole, it's a mandatory systemic protocol,
A cognitive stress test.
a cognitive stress test. So that's our mission for this deep dive, unpacking the OQM's really radical perspective. We're looking at Nadam, Jana, and Cheyenne, not as, historical figures, but as archetypes.
And cognitive states. They're the components you need to fulfill your taklif, your stewardship assignment.
And the whole thing is grounded in this one foundational principle. You cannot verify competence for the Khalifa role, the
Yeah.
steward, without opposition.
It's impossible. You can't say a system is secure till you've actually tried to hack it.
It's like a NASA simulation, right? They don't just train astronauts for a perfect flight.
No, of course not. They throw catastrophic failures at them, things that seem impossible, all to verify that the crew can actually manage the system under stress. Jono was that initial high-stakes simulation.
Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand this, we have to start by redefining the agents and the arena. We almost have to throw out the common dictionary here.
Absolutely. The OQM framework really insists that we stop looking at this as ancient history
Yeah.
and start seeing it as an operational manual. So when the sources talk about Ammon, they aren't talking about a single biological man.
Right.
Idam is a descriptor. It describes the cognitive essence, the inner core that accepted the taklif, the burden of choice, of governance. Adam is the agent assigned to task.
So Adam is the role, not the actor. And if that's true, then what about the location, Jana? It can't be a physical garden somewhere.
No, it's redefined as the concealed abode of privileged understanding, or more simply, a state of tranquility.
An incubator.
It's purely an incubator, a controlled, high-level training ground. The agent is put there, given the rules, placed in a state of innate security, and has complete privileged information. There's no need to seek guidance because you're immersed in it.
Okay, now let's bring in the conflict. This is where the terminology gets really specific and I think really important. The sources make a clear distinction between iblis and Shaytan.
Two different functions.
So if Adam is the agent, who are these two?
Let's start with iblis. The OQM defines iblis as the internal counterpart. He's called the Zaj, which means spouse or pair, and he's created from the nafs, from the very same essence as the agent.
Hold on. If he's created from the same essence, doesn't that make the agent Adam inherently flawed from the very beginning?
See, that's the key insight here.
I mean, if the enemy is built in, how can the agent really be responsible for failing?
Because iblis represents inherent biases and predilections. These aren't flaws in a destructive sense. They are necessary for free will to exist. You cannot have Adam, an agent with choice, without iblis, the mechanism that allows for self-interest, bias, or error. That internal vulnerability is part of the job description.
So Iblis is the required susceptibility. It's built into the system so the test can even work.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Iblis is the internal predisposition to make a mistake. And now you bring in Cheyenne,
The external trigger.
the external trigger. He's the active force, the disposition whose only operational goal is to block off divine guidance. So Iblis makes you capable of error. Shine is the one who actively tries to guide you into that error state.
So the setup in Jannah was this perfect, controlled simulation. You have the agent, Adam, who is naturally susceptible to bias. That's Iblis. You put him in a perfect environment, and then you introduce the external manipulator, Shaytan. The test isn't about being perfect. It's about managing that conflict.
And that takes us straight to the operational reason for all this, the audit. If the Khalifa, the steward, is supposed to govern, that system of governance has to be resilient and verifiable. Cheyenne is the mandatory audit function.
I love that framing, an audit function. So what specifically was this audit designed to expose?
His number one job was to expose the hidden cognitive weaknesses of the agent. Think about it. The system, the NAFs, it was brand new. It was operating in this tranquil state. It had never seen real stress.
Right, it was all theoretical.
Exactly. Without the stress test, Adam's ability to hold the Taklif would have been just a theory. He wouldn't have even known what his own deepest vulnerabilities were.
The sources mention that Shannon whispered to them to reveal the harmful things, the sawat, that were concealed from them. That phrasing, concealed, it sounds like the weakness was deliberately hidden until the audit.
That's it. The term sa'at implies something that causes shame or harm when it's exposed. It means that internal tendency toward error was latent. It was sleeping, basically, in the tranquility of jhana.
So you needed the external trigger.
You had to have Shayan to activate that latent weakness, to bring it out into the open so that Adam could see it, identify it, and then learn how to manage it.
So how does he do it? How does Cheyenne run the test? He doesn't just attack Adam head on.
No, that's what's so critical about the mechanism.
Okay.
He understands the system design. He knows his external force only works if it can find a foothold in the internal bias.
So he targets iblis.
He targets iblis. The sources call the mechanism waswasa. It's like an intimation, a whisper. And it says he whispers to the pair, meaning he's talking to both Adam and Iblis at the same time.
He's tempting the entire system through its built-in flaw, but what is he tempting them towards? The shajara, the tree. And the OQM is very clear. This is not a literal fruit tree.
No, not at all. The shajara is the trap itself. It's redefined as a group of argumentative deceivers. It represents complex, convoluted reasoning. Arguments that pull you away from clear, simple guidance.
Wow. Okay, that is a fundamental shift. So the failure wasn't eating an apple. The failure was engaging in complexity.
Absolutely. Xian's goal was simple. Move Adam from the security of divine obedience, the clear rules he had in jhana, into the weeds of argumentative complexity.
And by engaging with that tree, with all the debate and reasoning, Adam compromised his iman.
Yes, which is defined here as his foundational security and safety. He basically chose to rely on his own self-derived intellectual complexity over the explicit, privileged instruction he'd already been given.
And this gets us to the core metric of the test, right?
Right.
Reliance. The whole simulation seems to boil down to whether the agent will rely on nar or on nur.
That's the highest level distinction that governs the entire system. Nur is divine light, clear guidance. Nar is man-made elimination or self-derived intellect. It's the source code of Iblis, if you like.
So it's a binary choice.
It's a binary choice. Trust the verified light, the nur, or use your own fire, your nor, to light the way. Without Cheyenne forcing that decision, Adam's ability to handle the taklif would have just stayed theoretical, unproven. The stress test provided the necessary data point.
This changes the whole idea of the consequence then. It wasn't a punishment, it was just the result of a failed verification test in a lab. So what happens after the failure? This gets us to the next phase. The descent.
And the outcome is signaled by one of the most significant grammatical shifts in the whole narrative. The sources point out that the initial state in jhana was dual. It was Adam, the agent, and Iblis, his internal counterpart.
Yeah.
A pair.
Right, two of them.
But the command to descend is not in the dual form. It's decisively plural. Ibi. Descend, plural, not dual. Some of you are enemies to others.
Plural meaning three or more.
At least three. So the conclusion from the OQM is that this descent had to involve Adam, Iblis, and Shan, and maybe even the argumentative structures of the Shura itself.
So all the components of the simulation, the agent, the bias, the external opposition, they were all deployed into the art.
Into the art, which means the domain of seeking. So you see the progression. Jhana was the incubator where the test was initiated. The ardent is the live, operational environment where the test continues.
Which means the struggle between guidance Adam's true nature and Blakashaya and Iblis, that's not history. That is the engine of the test we are all in right now.
Exactly. We're here to resolve the system conflict that was first triggered back in that state of tranquility.
And this ongoing cognitive battle, it finds its operational form in the mechanism of the Quran.
Yes. The sources show that this model of opposition is so fundamental that even the most secure system, the Prophet Muhammad himself, was assigned an arbiter, a Qareen, a companion or antagonist from the spiritual realm.
The struggle never ends.
It can't, because the Khalifa assignment requires constant, moment-by-moment verification.
That's fascinating. So the Prophet's Quran becoming Muslim, what does that show us? It demonstrates it's possible to subdue the antagonist, right?
It demonstrates that the internal cognitive antagonist isn't invincible. The Prophet's Quran was subdued, it became Muslim with Allah's help. It means that external force, when you confront it by relying on nur, on operational obedience, It can be neutralized.
So it confirms the fight is internal?
It confirms that the constant internal dialogue with your Quran is the greatest struggle al-Jihad al-Akbar. The fight isn't out there somewhere. It's the continuous negotiation with your own biases and the external forces trying to block your guidance.
Okay, let's bring all of this back to the person listening, to you. If we step back from all the details, the story of Adam and Jannah is not some historical anecdote. It's the operating manual for your own cognitive core, for your nafs. It's the systemic explanation for why you have inherent biases. That's your iblees, and why you face this relentless external resistance that's your Shaytan.
And that's really the profound service of this OQM framework. It takes concepts that are often, wrapped up in mythology and turns them into rigorous, verifiable governance mandates. It lays out the path from being a Muslim, that initial state of ceding authority, to becoming mu'minun, the verified, secure state of attaining security.
And you can only get to that security by successfully navigating this perpetual test,
A test that never stops.
which seems to imply that security is never permanent. And that brings us to the final provocative thought for you to carry forward. If the entire purpose of this cosmic simulation was to prove competence through opposition, and if Cheyenne and the Korean are just the required audit function designed to generate verification data, what does that imply about every failure or internal temptation you experience? Is it just a required data point in your own personalized cognitive development profile? Something to consider as you deal with your own internal arguments today.